So, welcome to the Wild Holy podcast, where we trace the presence of the holy, not just in sanctuaries or scriptures, but in hospital rooms and farm fields and mega churches and the quiet corridors of the soul.
Yeah, and we believe that the holy doesn't wait for permission to show up. It shows up in the questions and contradictions and the places where sometimes we're told it even shouldn't be. So, our work here, as we've defined it on this podcast, is to notice the holy and to point it out. And in doing so, we hope to open your perception, dear listener, to its quiet, powerful presence in your own beautiful and particular life.
And today we're inviting you into a conversation with someone who is very dear to me, my cousin Shannon. She grew up on an Iowa farm surrounded by strong women and an earnest guitar strumming version of Lutheran faith.
And like many of us, Shannon inherited a religion that meant well, but eventually missed the mark, especially for a neurodivergent child trying to make sense of purity culture, end times fear, and a God who seemed to demand constant focus and a flawless faith, which is impossible.
And so this episode is an offering to anyone who's ever felt spiritually left behind, who has wondered if their way of being disqualifies them from divine love or participation in their community, because it doesn't. And the brilliant and funny Shannon will remind us that the holy shows no favoritism. It can meet us in the darkest of places, and it touches the heart of each of us when we remember to open our eyes to see and ears to hear.
So we're honored to have your voice with us today, Shannon. Hello.
Hi. Thank you. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. And I guess I'm just going to ask you right up front as we dive in. Would you tell us a little bit about your upbringing and that guitar strumming version of Lutheran faith that you experienced as a young person?
Sure. So I grew up in Iowa in the middle of the Midwest on a farm, as she said, surrounded by some very strong women. I've only ever had one church in my memory. And it's a it turned into a mega church, but it started out as a very small Lutheran church, sort of the upstart. And they were the new kids on the block who were transitioning away from the old Lutheran, I don't know, green book, red book, whatever the book was.
It was green.
Green book.
Yeah.
I was baptized at that church, but I don't have any memory of it. And we moved to this church when I was 3 or 4 years old. And they were like the new wave of Christianity in the 90s, where it had that whole new culture of, it's modern and we're going to play the guitar and maybe clap along to the songs. Oh my goodness. I thought it was normal in my childhood. Now I know that they were singing camp songs that had like actions and things. And it was like revolutionary to the adults. So they were really trying to get people engaged. Something our pastor always said growing up was, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is Lutheran. And so they just, they don't want to clap along and do the like actions to the song.
Sure.
But it's there, and we brought it out of them. So yeah, I grew up with a lot of acoustic guitars. I remember the youth pastor having, flip-flops and a puka shell necklace. And that was the vibe. We were very much wanting to bring people into the church. It seemed as the message was make it more accessible, welcoming.
Yeah,
was a big thing.
It sounds like their goal was to make it accessible for all people and to make it exciting and make the message appealing to those who come. Do you feel like it did that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why the church has grown to be as large as it has. They even just had one of the things what they called them garage door events, sort of I assume the churchy lingo, but of being like just in the neighborhood, the garage door's open, come on
Mm,
over.
mm-hmm.
So that
Casual.
casual, yeah, so that people feel welcome coming. They call themselves a come as you are church, which I always really liked because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know any different about, you have to wear your Sunday best kind of thing. I didn't grow up in that environment. Of course, obviously, my mother made me wear nice clothes to church, but as you got older, if it was like, you know what, if you roll out in your pajamas, great. If
As long
you
as you
roll,
show up, right?
right. And if you
Yeah.
show up in lace magic dress from head to toe, whatever, then that's fine too.
So what did you find was the upside to that kind of culture? Like what was the experience? Did you have good experiences with that? What did you learn? What did you take away that you like to keep with you still?
Yeah. The sort of welcoming environment, making everything comfortable, like this is your home. It's not so fancy that you can't touch anything.
Mhm.
Um, I've been to quite a few churches, particularly, for weddings and things like that, or like you go to a Catholic church and it feels like I need to put my hands behind my back or in my pockets so I don't touch anything because if you break it, you buy it.
Mhm.
Um, and there's so many like secret rules that you're not aware of, so you feel really uncomfortable. It didn't feel like that there, um, which really appealed to my spirit because then it felt like I could participate in things and I could tell people where I was like, oh no, that's totally fine. Like
Yeah.
everyone's welcome to take communion here. I didn't understand that there was like exclusionary rules at other churches that you couldn't do that. So it was really refreshing to have people come from other church backgrounds and come and I would be like, yeah, absolutely. You can do you have all the permissions.
Mhm.
There aren't like secret rules here of what you can and can't do.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that reflected in my family too. I come from there were often just strangers in my house because my brother would bring people home from college and my sister would have all her friends over and people would come to visit my parents. So it was very just like, yeah, people are here. Community is here. You're welcome here. If you're in my house, I joked that it's like the Olive Garden. When you're here, your family. So like if you're in my house, then like sit down, hang out, open the fridge, have a snack, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the church environment that I grew up in.
It's like a really wonderful thing to have inherited from that church tradition. It sounds like one of open community, one of everyone's accepted as you are,
Mhm.
um, or as you come. When did you start to feel a little bit of uncertainty about things that you inherited? Did you start to question? Because I know that you have questioned at some point. Do you want to talk a little bit about what those are?
Um, I sort of just naturally question things just the way my brain is. I certainly wasn't good at verbalizing them as a child because I didn't know to say that I was thinking differently. Um, and it's sort of, you don't know you're different when you're kind of in an echo chamber because, like, the person I'm going to go to is my mother or my family, and they are also different. So they're like, no, that seems normal to me. Like, so
Yeah.
you don't know that you're different or that you're questioning things because they think similarly.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of it was just cultural, and I would say that with the dawn of the internet coinciding with my foray into middle school and puberty and things where you start to question and develop your own like uh, sense of personality and independence and defiance, because that's where your um, you know development is to be
Yeah.
contradictory
Sure. Yes.
and find your own way. As I started to learn more about the world, um, my brain really likes logic. And
Mm.
so I would get frustrated learning about things I learned in the Bible or like culturally the things, as you mentioned earlier, like the purity culture, um, as I learned about feminism, as I
Mm.
learned that like women were treated less than men in many, many situations throughout history, and even to find out that it was happening in a modern time and that it was going to happen to me was weird because, as they mentioned, we grew up with a lot of strong women, and it was never that women were below men. In fact, it
Uh-huh.
was the opposite. Like, if you're going to make a decision, you go to the women, not the men. Um, so it was confusing to me and infuriating to me, and it did not make logical sense. And so that frustrated me. And it frustrated me the answers that if I would ask questions about things and I don't know, you would just get the response. It just felt like the burden was on women's shoulders for everything, particularly the
Uh-huh.
whole purity business.
Oh, uh-huh,
You
uh-huh,
get like a boys will be boys situation. It's your job to cover yourself and all of those things. And I was like, okay,
uh-huh,
but if that's real, then why does assault happen to women who are in full hijab burqas covering themselves head to toe?
uh-huh,
And also in tribes where they live on the equator and it's so hot you don't want to wear any clothes. So that kind of
uh-huh,
feels like it's not a clothing problem.
uh-huh.
It's a you problem. So that didn't make a lot of sense to me when I was being policed for the width of my spaghetti straps.
Oh, and you were from your church leaders or youth
Not from the
leaders,
church leaders, but from
parents?
school. Like, I think the purity culture, it it started in the church, but as you can see now, as the conservatism of Christian nationalists and things like that, it pervades into the wider culture. It seeps into your
Mm-hmm.
politics. It seeps into your local school board, and
Mm-hmm.
that was definitely prevalent in my experience. It wasn't being labeled as like a Christian thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I was certainly feeling it in my secular life of that, you can't wear this, you can't show your shoulders, God forbid, these kinds of things, because you disrupt the boys' education.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't
Jeez.
sit great with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shannon, at the same time, so you're using your beautiful logical mind to, you're noticing all of these contradictions and shadows. And also, I mean, because my understanding is that your embrace and exploration of your neurodivergence is fairly recent-ish, recent-ish. And you're now looking back at your life, your whole life, through the lens of knowing that you're neurodivergent. Neurospicy, I guess, is also one of my
Yeah. Until I
favorite.
get diagnosed, I don't know what the letters are. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we're just,
But you have suspicions.
oh, I have way more than suspicions. Yes. It's just not formally written down by a doctor, but other than that, it's real certain.
It's real certain. Okay, so so you're looking back at your whole life and looking back at this experience too, and seeing yourself as a neurodivergent person in this culture where, like, lots of good things, but also lots of things that don't seem logical, aren't really attending to shadow sides very well, or encompassing feminism and things like that. And at the same time, I'm sure, because I also grew up in that church partially,
Hmm.
that there's a sense in which you're always kind of comparing yourself to other Christians as a
Very
way
much
of
so.
like, am I okay? So can you talk about that experience as now, as a neurodivergent person?
Yeah. More than anything, obviously, like I said, I thought I was neurotypical because why would you think anything else? There weren't even words for that. I thought I was normal because there was no way to express that I wasn't. And I didn't present the way a typical, um, well, as we know, boy, because that's what they did all the studies on, of that would have ADHD, autism, whatever it is, they didn't study it on girls, and I didn't cause trouble. I was smart. I just was there and I
Mm-hmm.
did what I needed to do. So I didn't put up any red flags. Um, so the only thing I had was comparison to give me cues and social cues, which is how I thought everyone lived their life, but it's become known to me that that is not how everyone else operates. So watching everyone else in the church where I was spending most of my time, I'm there at least twice a week for children's activities and on Sundays, and then my family would like volunteer for things, or my mom was in a band. So I would go with her to practice there to sing worship songs and whatever. And that was my only social cues for how to behave, to be a person, and how to be a Christian. And it seemed to me like everyone else was doing it better than I was, because I'm hearing what they're saying about like prayer, or this is what a good Christian does. You should be spending this much of your day in quiet time and having reflection and Bible time and prayer. And I couldn't do that. I tried. Like, I desperately wanted to plan and make myself a schedule, and I would try to follow it to a T, and I can't.
Yeah.
Like, I would plan it all out, and I just could not focus. Or everything was very big on prayer. And so we would sit there and they would say, this is how you pray. You start with these words, then you follow up with like praise and thanks and all of these things.
Yeah.
And I would sit there and just like close my eyes because everyone else is doing it, and
Mm-hmm.
earnestly start the same way. Like, I want to pray.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I start doing it, I'm like praying. And then my brain is like that meme of ADHD, essentially, where you're like, oh, blah, 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 squirrel.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the same thing where I'm like, oh, God, thank you so much. You've done so much for me. Like, I thank you for my parents and I love you. And please watch over these people. And then my brain would be like, oh my gosh, we should have pizza for dinner. And then I'm starting going over my dance routines for my dance practice and those kind of things. And then I'd be mad at myself, like, oh, no, I'm supposed to be concentrating. Oh, how did I even get here? So it seemed like all the adults, particularly, but even the kids, who I'm sure are also pretending, but were better than me because of that. I also had, I mentioned I had friends who went to like a private Christian school, and they were in like Bible verse competitions of memorizing these things. And like, they really emphasized at the church being, we are a Bible based church. But
Mm-hmm.
every time I
Mm-hmm.
tried to read the Bible, like, I'm a voracious reader. It runs in our family. And I could not focus to save my life because I couldn't even keep the names straight. Like, everyone's changing their names of all the apostles and the followers. And at the beginning, it's they list the whole family tree before you get to the plot of what you're saying in the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
It's, I can't read Lord of the Rings for the same thing.
Yeah. So it
Matthew is a
sounds,
challenge.
yeah. Yeah, all those genealogies and stuff,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like so the tradition seemed to have a lot of structure in place as far as formulaic ways of praying, um, requirements or not requirements, but certain urgings to spend a certain amount of time in the Bible and really treat the Bible with respect and
Hmm.
urging to spend more time with it. But what happened was those well-meaning guidances that they were trying to put out there for you weren't aligning with the way that you were. So it wasn't a fit, and it was actually, it sounds like, maybe was hindering your faith walk.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, in terms of formality, luckily I had people at home who didn't necessarily feel the same way. They weren't putting those boundaries on me, and they
Mm,
talked about other aspects of spirituality, and so they weren't reinforcing that at home. So it was more just a desire to be the good child, which I still very much have, of being like, well, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it right.
Uh,
And if
mhm,
we're doing it at church, then I should be doing church right,
mhm.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you find that you're a perfectionist in other areas of your life? Or is it's just more of what you're saying is like being the good child, or is there like a just difference for you?
It's not fully perfectionism, but it's maybe a desire not to create chaos
Uh-huh.
or to be the problem child.
I see.
Like, I don't want to be
Uh-huh.
the one that's causing you inconvenience or, um, yeah, who's just not doing well, kind
Yeah.
of thing. I would rather, if you're doing, I don't want to do well to be praised. I want to
Mm-hmm.
do well to be overlooked.
Mm.
Like, I don't want to be perceived. I don't want you looking at me and scrutinizing me, because then I can go home if I'm just doing the best that I can, that you can look at me like in school, like I did. Like, they didn't notice any of this in me because I was just good enough that it was like, she's fine. There's no
Yeah.
red flags. So you don't need to look closer. So then I can go home and just like curl up in a ball and read my book and do what I actually want to do.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you didn't want to cause any ripples or waves in the status quo, so you just wanted to go under the radar and then do your
Exactly.
own thing.
Yeah, I didn't need to have all A pluses. I was great with B's and A's and B's and maybe even a C, but like, I'm not going to get below that it causes you to
Mhm.
take a closer look.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
At the same time, Shannon, like it's so fascinating. I recommend to anyone with or without a podcast to have a deep conversation with someone they're related to, provided that it's safe for everybody involved. Because one thing that it didn't surprise me, but then like you don't always know what people's experiences have been since we're 11 years apart. And one feature of your story, which will lead into another part of your story, is that your family experienced a lot of death. And starting for you at a really young age. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? And I think maybe this connects to what you were saying about not wanting to be, you didn't use this word, but like not wanting to be a burden or not wanting
Mm-hmm.
to like add to, the things that were going on in your family. So do you want to talk about that a little bit? We're just getting into all our family stuff here
Oh
with an
yeah,
audience. Yeah, yeah. Not all of it, but
absolutely.
yeah.
But I think being a burden is the perfect word for it. Nobody told me that. I just sort of instinctually internalized it because I'm the youngest. My siblings are 8 and 10 years older than me. I'm the youngest cousin on our side and on my father's side as well. Um, our mothers were sisters. And that's how I just experienced life. Like, I got toted around, or not like anyone ever made me feel like I wasn't special or important or any of those things, but just due to the nature is that, like, I'm the youngest, so I get toted around. I gotta go to, your sister's dance practice and your brother's track meet and, those kinds of things. Or there's nobody to watch you at home because they all have activities and dad has to work. So I have to go to your mom's Christian band practice. That's just how it happens. And the same thing happened where, because of that, everyone is so much older than me that everybody be dying. And it started, my first memory of a funeral was in the first grade. It was my great uncle, who honestly I have no memory ever meeting, no context for that. Um, but I told her I mostly was angry about having to go because my mother made me wear my sister's party dress from the 80s. And she made me wear it to school because she was going to pick me up for the funeral. And it was, to me, the most humiliating thing that had ever happened. because I hated the dress, and I probably was in a I don't wear dresses phase. So that's like my first foray into funerals and death. Um, then as I got older, our grandfather got sick and passed away, and I was probably in late elementary school, I want to say. I didn't have a lot of context for death because that was the first like real, not grown up memory, but almost grown up memory of it. Then after that, then my paternal grandmother got sick and passed away. Then well, there's a smattering of others. My mother was a public health nurse, and anytime there's sort of like an older, like I said, when you're here, your family at my house. And so it was a lot of people who like either didn't have children or didn't have family close, like we would take care of them. And so they started to pass away as well. In college, my paternal grandfather passed away. Then my maternal grandmother passed away. Then my aunt passed away. Then my paternal uncle passed away. It was a lot of death all of the time. So much so that I don't think I told you this, Steffi, but I was in, I think, middle school or high school, that my mom took me shopping and like made me buy black clothes because she's like, you have to have like a funeral attire because you're going to be going to a lot. Like it wasn't you need a little black dress because you might be going on dates or things like that. It was like you need a black dress because it's going to be happening a lot.
What did all of that experience and encounters with death do for your questioning of God and God's presence? Was there any sort of effect on that? Did you start to ask questions of God as
I
a
did ask
result?
questions of God. In my head, they were like, I would say the first meaningful one was our grandfather who passed away when I was in late elementary school. And in my head, he was old. Now, as an adult, I can realize that he wasn't actually that old. So it sort of made sense to me that I was like, yeah, old people die. Um, and there were like, I spoke to our grandmother about it, about some of my concerns. Like, what are your questions? Are you sad that grandpa's gone? Um, are you mad that grandpa's gone? Are you worried about it? Because I'm kind of worried about it. And our grandmother was a very strong, solid person in her faith, at least in her expression of it to me, that she said no. She was super confident, where she was just like, I'm sad, but he's okay. And I know he's okay. And he's told me he's okay. And so I'm not that worried about it. And so it gave me quite a bit of security in that, where I got real comfy with death, where I'm afraid of it like any other human being because it's instinctual. Or also, if you just sit there long enough and try to contemplate infinity, your brain is just like,
Yeah, the
I can't
mystery of
handle
it,
it.
the
Yeah,
unknown. Yeah.
yeah, it freaks you out a little bit. Um, but other than that, I was just like, yeah, this is what happens, and the people around me are okay with it. I definitely had questions and fears watching the expression of grief from other people, like going through the grief experience with my mother, because that's when um, my siblings were at college. So I was the only one at home to monitor or to witness that. And then for it to jump right into the other side of my family where, we had to be there for mom, but now we have to be there for dad. And it's having a lot of overlap. So it's, yeah, managing. Well, you don't need to manage the grief of adults, but when you're a child, you sort of feel like maybe I do. Maybe that is something I should be doing.
Mm. That's a heavy weight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm hearing like notes of the neurodivergence too, right? I mean, it can happen to anybody, but just being very aware of other people and not being sure how to relate to the thing that you're experiencing. Um,
Yeah.
that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Not sure how to relate. And like I said before, that's how I'm taking my cues of how to be a person,
Mm-hmm.
and also trying to anticipate other people's needs so that, like, I crave homeostasis. I don't want any waves in my life,
Mhm.
um, because that's change, and then I don't know how to instinctually react to that all the time. And so it's sort of managing other people's emotions so that they're all okay, so that then I know my environment is okay and safe.
Mhm.
And if I don't know that my environment is okay or safe because they're going to cry, or, I mean, they were never yellers or screamers, but there's people like that in the world where you instinctually feel like your whole body's going like this in anticipation of, I don't know how you're going to react. And so I'm not going to do anything because I can't predict you.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds a bit confining to me. You're confining yourself for the comfort of other people. And out of love, where do you find the greatest expression of yourself? Is it alone? Is it with other people? How do you get out
Oh,
of
it's
that
for sure
confined
alone.
way? Yeah, is it? Yeah, yeah. I'm with
It's
you
for
in
sure.
that.
Yeah. Um, Steffi can attest to it that like at family gatherings, I always had a book. And so I could just curl up and read my book, or pretend I was reading my book if I was even listening to what the adults were saying.
Uh-huh.
Um, could be my own quiet little space because there's nowhere else to go. And you'd get chastised if you were going off to be alone because then you weren't being social and all of these things. Growing up, very much so, my mom did the right thing for all of her children who might have some sort of neurospiciness by happenstance, where we were all enrolled in dance classes. And it was incredibly helpful for us, when maybe detrimental in the sense that, like, because it helped us so much, it maybe didn't show our signs in daily life. So we didn't get the help we needed
Yeah,
till we
yeah.
were adults, but it was very grounding. You're often barefoot. It
Uh,
has rhythm and music. It exhausts your muscles. It exhausts your brain. It overwhelms your
uh-huh.
body. It's emotional. It's all those things. So growing up, I had that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, as an adult, it's definitely being alone. Like, I need a lot of alone time to recharge.
Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to say too that one of my, you have like these visual pictures of people, and one of my visual pictures of Shannon is like she's about to go into like a dance move. Like
Yeah.
she's about to like expand or do like a running leap, or I don't even know. I didn't go
Yeah.
that far into ballet, but
Uh-huh.
but
No,
something
I
like
still
that.
do that in a grocery store aisle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love it.
still do that. But
We
that's
need more
fully
spontaneous
no
dancing.
awareness, yeah,
Yeah.
of, as a kid, of just like, I understand that it's maybe not socially appropriate, but I can't handle it. So I'm just going to do it anyway and turn and leap and make people dance down the hallway at school because
Yeah.
I didn't feel embarrassment about that. So I was just like, yeah, let's do it.
Well, I guess I do have one like connection between the body movement as an expression of yourself. Did you find in the church worship services that was a great release for you as you were doing worship with like a rock band where people might have been moving around, or did it not get that crazy at your church?
It was too Lutheran. Was it too Lutheran, Shannon?
No, that I think that's it. That is the irony, is that, like, it it wasn't too Lutheran, I really enjoyed the clapping and all of the things and some of the dance moves. Our VBS goes hard. It's turned into basically like a full-on rave, but with like
Yeah.
Jesus lyrics,
Yes.
complete with the lights and everything. But it almost became the other way as the church grew into a more mega church thing. It became less and less for me because there were too many people and I didn't know how to express that, and it's too loud and I
Oh,
didn't
too
know how to express
overstimulating.
that. Yes. Um, yeah, it got to be just a lot of sensory input. I would dance in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was helpful that way, but it wasn't a physical expression necessarily. Um, I did like do dance for some church services every once in a while. They would call upon me to, because she's the kid who can't stop dancing, so like have her dance during the Christmas service kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I feel like that's also how it was a spiritual connection, how I worshiped, is that when I'm singing worship songs, I wasn't like really connecting to the words more.
Mm-hmm.
I was dancing in my head, choreographing, and through the movement, that's how I felt the spirit
Mm-hmm.
rather than just standing there. And
Yeah. So it did connect to you in a body type of way, but the body was being expressed intellectually, which is interesting. It's like beneath a layer of mind, but still attached to the body. Because I'm sure
Mhm.
that you could kind of imagine moving, and you were imagining moving to the music. So that's
Yeah,
really neat. That's
it's like
really
it's
interesting.
essentially, now that I can look back on it, like hindsight's 2020, is that it's stimming.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess
It's
that's true, right?
that's how
Right.
I'm
Okay.
stimming,
Uh-huh.
and I'm
Yeah.
dancing either in my brain or I have my hands like in my pockets or in my lap, and I'm like, in dance, you like mark the moves with your hands, like this would be a turn and whatever, or you're doing ballet, this is how you like organize your feet. I had a teacher once when I was like a junior or senior in high school be like, I think you're dancing in your chair. And I'm like, yeah, I'm done with my test. And so I was going over my dance routines and I was just gently moving my feet under my desk, practicing the step. So it was
Yeah.
obvious stimming there the whole time, but it didn't have the word for it because it was just in disguise as a practical dance matter.
Yeah. But the
Or just
stimming,
quirkiness because I'm a girl and Shannon's quirky.
yeah,
That's just what she does.
you didn't know how to put it inside of a box so you can convey it to somebody else yet, right? That
No, I
whatever
thought I was
define what it
normal. I thought
was.
we were all doing that.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was total news to me that no
But
one else was doing that.
I just wanted to see the stuff was this, the stimming was helping you worship and connect with God.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. That's very cool. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Well, and was itself a form of worship, right?
Yes.
And connection, not just in a formal, like, here's Christmas Eve dance for us now, but actually was like movement as a form of expression. I was just going to say that one of my memories of our, like, this is somewhat pre Shannon's memory of the very traditional Lutheran church was like me wiggling constantly during worship. And my mom would like clap her hand down on my knee and say, "Can you please be quiet?" So, we're all exploring our neurospiciness here. Um, I didn't want to miss an opportunity to talk about cancer because one of the things that I noticed almost right away when you let the wider family know, that you had been diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 32,
Mm.
that, obviously it's shocking and heartbreaking as a family member to hear that, and scary and all the things. But one thing that was striking to me right away, Shannon, was that I thought, oh, you're not going to play the role of like a poor young woman with cancer, like that you had no desire to kind of play poor cancer victim right away. And I was like, this is so badass. And I didn't, it's not like I mean, I didn't know what to expect, but I wasn't surprised. I was like, oh, this is exactly how the Shannon that I know, which is not the totality of Shannon, but enough of Shannon. This is exactly how the Shannon I know would 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 approach this vis-a-vis, um, how to be in relationship with other people when you have cancer. Because there's something about that where it's like suddenly all eyes are on you. It must be overwhelming for anyone neurotypical, never mind someone neurodivergent. And people are just like emoting at you. And so, can you talk
Mm.
about that experience of being diagnosed? I'm sure was a whirlwind. I know it was a whirlwind of things, but also how you were like how you decided to move through it in a way that felt like it had integrity for you.
Yeah. So I think a big aspect of that is that I have a strong desire to know myself, um, which I think is incredibly intertwined in my faith, in that, like, I want to know more about me because God designed me. So I am just like desperately trying to read the user manual so that I can be the me that God wanted me to be. Like, He has plans for me. He I have potential. I have things that I can do, but I have to know myself to be able to function and do those things. So I've done a lot of introspection, and do all the personality tests, the Enneagram, the MBTI, the whatever, a lot of self-examination so that I can know myself and be the best version of me so that I can influence others the way God wants me to. And I don't know that that's ever going to be incredibly far reaching, but it's particularly locally, like if anything, just for my nieces or my friends or whatever, I have to be Shannon the way I was designed. And I also happen, this church that I grew up in, I also worked in it for 5 years. So I was incredibly hyper aware of how the church treats people who are in need. And it's not a bad thing, but it's a culture, and you can kind of predict their behavior. Um, and so I know what the response is going to be. I know how the chaplains are going to say this, and I know what the pastors are going to say, and I know that, like, all the ladies at the church are going to want to do this and help you. And I'm from the Midwest. There's a strong Midwestern desire for a casserole, or
Yep.
a food train kind of thing, which all comes from this enormous, wonderful place of love. But it is not going to fit me at all. Um, and I, like you said, I just can't handle that much attention. So when I got diagnosed and I was ready to tell the world about it, I just made an Instagram post with all of my boundaries. And I did it as a frequently asked questions style thing where I was like, hey, your friendly neighborhood Shannon got diagnosed with cancer. You got a lot of questions. Here's what they are. Here are the answers to it. No, this doesn't mean I'm dying necessarily. I didn't know at that point. Um, or one of the ones I said was, oh, this is really sad. I want to talk about it. And I was like, yes, that is an appropriate grief response. However, you may not speak to me about it. I highly recommend a friend, a parent, a pastor, a therapist, but you cannot talk to me about your sad feelings about my cancer. Because I already have to manage my own and my direct family members. Um, so I don't need you to come tell me how sad you are. Another thing I put was, oh, my mom's best friend's boyfriend's third cousin, twice removed neighbor, had cancer in his toe. Do you want to talk about it? No, I don't. You're saying it out of love because the human desire is to relate and to find something that can relate. And I understand that more than anyone because that's constantly what my brain is trying to do, is to find a nugget of something so I can relate to you. But cancer is different for everyone. on a giant level. And then the more specific you get about your cancer, like I can't even relate to other breast cancer people. My cancer is so specific. I'm so young. I don't have any of the genetic markers, those kinds of things, that I can't even talk about having the same experience as the person in the chemo chair next to me. So I don't really want to absorb all of your things that might give me anxiety because you're talking about this happened to my friend and this was a horrible thing and this was a good thing and I can't absorb that. So these are my boundaries and you may come up to them but you may not go past them.
Incredibly, I mean, like I said, badass. I can't imagine myself doing that even now. um, but what I hear in that is like coming out of a strong sense because you've done a lot of self exploration, a strong sense of your own self and what you need and don't need, and navigating now. I mean, now thinking about yourself as a neurodivergent person, like navigating that, it's like, yeah, this is where you stop and start. This is where I stop and start. And I know I can anticipate enough of this experience to understand, a little bit about how I need to navigate this for myself. I'm wondering, Shannon, just to kind of go back to something you'd said before. I mean, anyone who is diagnosed with what you were diagnosed with at the age you're diagnosed with, like, there's a lot of things in the mix. Um, and you're thrown into this whole new world, right? Of cancer, and like doctors are telling you things and you're getting prescribed all these medications, and there are some really, harrowing moments of being super sick and lots of things being uncertain. And I wonder, given what you said about our grandmother's relationship to death, like what you remember from what she said after our grandfather passed away, how that, like, did that strand come back in? Because, like, death is a possibility.
It definitely did. For context, because anyone watching this wouldn't know, I was diagnosed with stage 4 HER2 positive breast cancer. So it was in my left breast, my left lymph node, and my liver. It's what pushed it to stage 4. So it was a lot of harrowing moments, as you said, of like suddenly you have to contemplate your existence. Um, and I couldn't have done any of it without my sister, another of the strong women in our family. She took control of everything. My parents happened to be, I'm unmarried, so I didn't have like a partner to lean on for this. And my parents were out of the country at the time. So my sister made a binder and she took control, and she also helped me with the boundaries where it was like having a cancer spokesperson, whereas like you may not speak to me about giving me gifts or bringing me food or things like that, but you may talk to my sister. Like she will be the filter for these things. Um, and she, on the way back from an appointment one day, like I was starting to get sad and get teary. And she was like, let's just name it out loud. Like that's what we do. Just say it out loud. Because if you keep it inside, then it just boils and roils and it turns over and over and over and your brain won't let it go. And what is it? Is it death? Are you scared of death? And I was like, no more so than the average person. I'm more worried about the people that I'm leaving behind. I have 6 nieces and 1 nephew who at the time were all just in like middle school, like very early teenage years. And I'm very close with all of them. I'm very close with my parents and my family. And I knew from my experience being intertwined with grief growing up that I was like, this is going to shape their whole life. And it already is anyway, because I lived, I'm fine. And I'm cancer free. But if I had died, like, if that happens to them, particularly as they're going through puberty and they're starting middle school and everything, like, this is going to change their whole lives, their whole personalities, their whole brain development. It's going to wreck my siblings, and no parent should ever have to bury a child. Like, it's going to destroy the rest of my parents' lives. No matter how much faith you have, that I'm okay in heaven or whatever, like, you're still sad. I think that knowing my experience with grief, knowing that there's not a cure, there's not an end to grief. It takes a different shape, and some days it swings really heavy and some days it's barely there at all. But it doesn't go away. And so I was upset because I knew that if I was gone and this tragic, sad thing happened, then all the people that I left behind would have a sadder quality of life. And from my grandmother, I was confident about death because she was confident about death. Even on her deathbed, I was with her. Um, when our pastor came to speak with her, she was still challenging him. Like, she was still at the stage where, she's seeing the people at the end of the bed, the deceased that have gone before her, calling her to go to heaven. She's already experiencing that. And he comes to visit and she's like, I think you're wrong about some of the stuff. I
I
read
it.
some books, particularly about women. And she was challenging him on that on her literal deathbed. So I have always had a confidence just in the afterlife because of that, like a security. And I think in our conversation I talked to Steffi about is like the biggest concept of it all is surrender. It doesn't come naturally to me. Obviously, my body just wants to hold on to it and control it because then my brain feels better about it and I can make sense of the world. But once I got to a place in my life, through all the death, through all of the grief, through the self-exploration, that I can just let it go and understand that it's not for me to know. And that was a huge assistance, that, like, it's above my pay grade. This is what I know. This is the information I have about it from my family, from my experiences, from my religious faith education. And that's okay.
I love hearing about how you've been reassured also by other family members, that there's something beyond death and that there's nothing to be afraid of in death. So I just see this reoccurring theme for you of community and family and support and love between all of them. And I think that's really great, and love hearing that the experience seemed to have taught you more about surrender and realizing that you can't understand everything. It's such a wonderful lesson that you can carry with you now as you go on and live your life.
Yes. And people often ask me, like, are you scared? What do you feel? What are your responses to this? And I remember just telling them in a chemo haze that I was like, I just feel love. I feel love in action, which is what I was taught that Jesus called us to, not to get mired down in all of the politics of it and all these rules that people have applied, that the human race has created and tried to put in a box. I feel Christ's love in action because I see it in the way the people showed up for me. I literally had people all over the world praying for me.
Hmm.
And you can feel that. And not everyone else is as lucky to have that. And that's part of the reason why I put all those boundaries in place, is because I wrote in my thing where I was like, there's like 100 of you just locally that would show up for my family, even if it's not just for me. Um, and there's only one of me. I can't respond to all of you. I can't carry your emotions,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel it, and I feel your love
Mm-hmm.
in those words and in your actions, and I acknowledge it. I just can't support it right now
I think that's a
because
really
I'm
good message for people to hear, that when you see somebody else suffering, you want to go and help. In light of your neurodivergence, that probably felt very overstimulating and overwhelming to have that many people coming at you. But at the same time, like you said, you could feel the warmth of their prayers and their good intentions towards you. Um, Even though that's not seen in the material world, it's felt in the non-physical world, to the person who is going through something. So I think that's a really good message for people to hear from you. Yeah.
Well, yes, and I think it's important for people who grew up in a church community or just maybe are plain Midwestern, that there's like a script you feel like you should follow when somebody is hurting, either physically or through grief and death or something like that. But it's important to know yourself, and it's important to know others, like knowing your love language kind of thing, is that like it will make me feel better if I'm doing this for you, but is it going to make them feel better
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
receive gifts or to have you show up to do all of those things? To be
Yeah.
mindful of it, that it's not a one size fits all answer, and
Mm-hmm.
having those responses is great. And like I said, I told them, like, I feel your love in all of your questions and the things, and I'm not shaming you. Like, I feel your well intentions and the action and love behind your words, but I just I can't receive that right now. So know that it's not a rejection, and I'm not mad. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I'm more of an oversharer. I'll tell you anything you want to know about the cancer stuff, but there's a time and a place for it, and it's not like in when I'm in the chemo chair.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to say, as we kind of wrap up here, we've been talking about a lot of deep things, some hard things too. At the same time, I've noticed in myself and others, when we have gone through really challenging, like, um life defining moments, if you kind of give yourself over to it, like, you get melted down and then remolded in some ways. And the fascinating thing about living in a different state and then coming home to Iowa, um, every once in a while, is you get to see different versions of people, right, as they go along, and I'm sure they see it in you too. And one thing that struck me about, like, witnessing you as you were going through this part of the journey is that, from going from maybe someone who was most comfortable with a book, at a big family gathering, or sitting with your nieces, right? And doing something with them. I always love hanging out with the kids. They're always the most fun. Um, but there was a sense I felt in you that there was like a melting into joy. You're like the most joyful person with cancer I've ever known. And I
Yes.
felt instead, because you can kind of tell when people are, it's performative, because it's all the things you're speaking about, where you're like, I need to be cheerful to make you feel better. Inside, I'm just like,
Yes.
ugh. And instead, I had the opposite feeling. I'm like, oh, inside of this person was this, it was always there, but was this like wellspring of joy.
Yes.
and fun. And like, no one is a funnier person with cancer than you. Like, genuinely, like, poking fun at it in all these different kinds of ways. And I'm like, again, not the narrative of like that we're expecting.
Yeah. I think that comes from aging and talking, like I said, to God about me. Like, who did you design me to be? And how can I use myself the best? I am not good at, remember, I'm not a Bible scholar. I know the stories, I know the things, I know the boiled down essence of the feelings and whatever of what God does. And when you boil it all down, it's love. I can do that. I'm not so good maybe at all the other things, but like I get the essence of that. And all I've got is that God wired me to be a joyful person. I don't know any different. I've often had times in my life where it just like literally bubbles up. It doesn't even have to be people around where it just bubbles up and all of a sudden I just have to like scream it out loud, where I'm just like, ah! I'm just so happy I can't handle it. My body can't contain it any longer. And yeah, he just made me that way, and I make jokes because it makes me laugh. I am doing it a lot of the time inside my head. Like I posted a funny picture, I think, right after my diagnosis, because I was at a Walgreens, and there were is it zodiac or astrology signs? They had mugs, and there was one that said cancer on it, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Hey, it's me," kind of thing. Like, and then I would
Oh.
often joke when I was, because I could feel the cancer was shrinking, if not fully gone, by like my second or third round of the like I'm gonna kill you kind of chemo. Um, and so I would just joke and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm like super good at cancer. I'm like really good at it." So I also have the joyful burden of being a young cancer patient. Um, like I said, it's hard to relate to other people, even who also have breast cancer, who even had my exact kind of breast cancer, because they're usually not my age. They're not my circumstances. I didn't do anything to get cancer. I didn't drink or smoke or do bad things, quote unquote, you know. I just existed and it just happened, and I didn't feel the need to question it. A lot of people were bogged down in the why. Why you? Why did it happen to you? You're so lovely and great. And they would say all these nice things about me. And I'm like, does there have to be a why? Stuff just happens. And all I can do, all I can control, as I've learned about my neurodivergency, is to like boil it down like, what can I can control in this situation to make myself feel better? And all I can do is just be myself. And one day I went to the chemo room for my maintenance chemo for my immunotherapy in sparkly disco pants because it was New Year's Eve, and the nurses see a lot of sad stuff there all the time. So it's like, if it makes somebody smile to wear goofy pants, okay. Like, it's not a big deal.
That is you, Shannon, in a chemo room, in one of those chemo chairs, in sparkly disco pants.
I love it.
That is you. I want to thank you, Shannon, for this conversation. Again, I recommend to anybody to have more in-depth conversations with family members, including ones that, you know, it's very easy to think that you know someone or you know what their journey is or you have a sense of them. And then you listen and it's like, whoa, all of this like opens up. Shannon, I wish you many years of sparkly disco pants and great hair days. And
Thanks. I'm still working on that part.
however you choose to be in the world, it is enough and more than enough. And I'm so grateful to be your cousin. How lucky am I?
And I'm so grateful to have been able to meet you today, Shannon, and to be able to experience your joyful spirit comes through here as well as through your story. And I guess as we all go our separate ways, Stephanie, Shannon, and the listener who is listening to the podcast right now, I just want to say, may we all feel the holy moving through our questions, through our body, through the dance, and may we know that we belong, not because we believe the right things, but because we're already held. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.